So today by Hashgacha Pratit we have something very beautiful, which is that we're dedicating our class to the Sfira Yesod, and today it's Yesod Sheba Yesod. So for us it's Yesod Sheba Yesod Sheba Yesod. This is our class today. Yesod Sheba Yesod Sheba Yesod. Meaning it's a very elementary class. We're back in elementary school. Element is Yesod, right? Foundation, but it's also element. So the Yesod is very unique because Yesod does not only combine and incorporate the two preceding Sefirot, but it actually it gathers into itself and passes on all of the Sefirot that preceded it. Because this is not just the third Sfira in a triangle, like Dat and Tiferet were, but it is the point in which all the three lines converge into one line, and the soul passes all this energy and all these soul powers into Malchut. So it's all about concentration. It's all about taking different elements, all of the many elements of our lives, all the many things we want to say, all the many things we want to express, all the different sides of our personality, and finding a way of putting them all together, concentrating them, ordering them, and expressing them in a way that is fruitful, in a way that really manages to touch reality and influence reality. We said that the names of the seven Sefirot, the seven lower Sefirot, come from a prayer uttered by David in Chronicles. And the verses go, Lecha Hashem HaGdula, that is Chesed, VaHaGvura, VaHaTiferet, VaHaNetzach, VaHaHod. Ki chol asher b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, everything that's in heaven and on earth, Ulecha Hashem HaMamlacha, VaMitnaseh Lechol Rosh. To you is the kingdom that rises back towards the head or the beginning. And apparently we have all the first five Sefirot, Agdula, Gvura, HaTiferet, HaNetzach, VaHod. And then in the end we have Mamlacha, which alludes to kingdom, Malchut. But Yesod is missing, it's hidden. So it's alluded to in the phrase Ki Chol, for everything, or because everything. Ki Chol in Gematria is Yesod. It's the same Gematria. It's a modest Sefirah because Yesod, anatomically, it corresponds to the procreative organs. Both the male's procreative organ, that's the major metaphor used to symbolize the Sefirah of Yesod, the Evar Brit, the organ of the covenant, which takes all the different powers, life powers of the male, and concentrate them into one seed, and that seed is given to the spouse and produces life. But it can also correspond to the woman's procreative organ, that is to the womb. The womb also gives birth. It gives birth to an organism, not to a seed. But the idea is the same. The image is the same. That this is a procreative organ. So where were we before that? We said that I lost my thread of thought.
Speaking about the sound.
Yeah, so I said it's a modest Sefirah. Because it's modest, it's hidden in this verse. It's just called Ki Chol. And what does it mean Ki Chol? Ki Chol it means everything. So the word Kol, Kaf Lamed, everything, is like an allusion to Yesod in Kabbalah. When you see the word Kol, it can refer to foundation. Why? Because this is the soul power that takes all the other powers and its object, it's what it does, and the work that goes around this element called Yesod in our lives is not in and of itself part of our personality. It's a place, it's a soul power that has to do with taking the different sides of our personality and finding a way of expressing them in a way that's really fruitful, that really influences, as opposed to negative kinds of influences, things that we shout at reality, or that we force at reality, or that we try to do things in a way that are to say things that are not heard, that are not in a way that are not, that's negative influences. So we want to understand, of course, the rectified kind of influence. Now, just to have just so that we see how much, what's unique about Yesod, in many places it says that really, we said that there are 7 attributes of the heart, but we know that Malchut is something very special. It's like Shabbat, and we'll talk about that next week. It's really it has to do with ourselves once we are outside of ourselves, things that we have already said, that we have already done, that are already taking place in reality. It's not really things that are part of who we are. Yesod is like the threshold between our inside world and the outside world. Malchut is on the outside. The 5 powers, all the powers before Yesod, are fully on the inside. Yesod is like the threshold. It's like coming on stage from behind the, how do you say in English? מאחורי הקלעים. Backstage, from the backstage, behind the scenes, or from backstage to the on stage. So Yesod is like the threshold of coming out and giving to the world something that I really need to give to the world. And in many, many ways, all the other Sefirot are just preparation for this. You can see that the inner dimension of Yesod is emet, truth. So this is like, we can call it the moment of truth. This is a moment that validates everything that is going on in our psyche. Whether something is really rectified or not rectified, it will come across in these moments of truth. The moment that we have to stand on stage or be in some situation, in a conversation, in a challenge, in a dilemma, and we're there. We have to be present there. Again, the major image here is that this is an organ of procreation, meaning this is a place of meeting, of zivug. So this is a place where the man meets the woman meets the man, where each of us meets reality, meets all the other persons around us. Every meeting is, when it's positive, it's like a productive union. So this is the place where we confront the other person. In Hebrew, the word to confront is eimut. Confrontation is eimut. Ein, Yud, Mem, Vav, Taf. Eimut. Validation, which comes from, you bought this for this class? Wow. Wow. כל הכבוד. כל הכבוד. יפה מאוד. This is the moment when you give up on other people and you realize that you have to do it. So in Hebrew, confrontation, oh, this is wonderful. Confrontation is imut. And confirmation or validation, making sure something is true, is real, is imut with an aleph. Same sound almost, very similar word. It's imut. The root is aleph mem taf, and this root is ain mem taf. The relationship between aleph and ayin is that aleph is a subtle or inner version of the same word when it's written with an ayin. You can see that. There's many examples of this, and we can even see that even the letters. Aleph is 1 in Gematria, and ayin is 70 in Gematria. It's an expansion of the 1, like Noach having 7 peoples, and Moses having 70 wise men, and the one Torah having 70 sides to it, and so on. And also the sound, Aleph is subtle, and ayin is thickening the same sound. It's taking the same sound, the throaty sound, and making it thicker and more present. So for example, the easiest example is the word or, light, and the word iver, blind, is the same ayin vav resh, same letters, except we turn the aleph into an ayin, then we get Iver. So Iver is someone who doesn't see the light. And there are more examples. So here, there's something interesting, that the place in which Yesod is the place of both these elements, both confrontation and confirmation. When we confront reality, in these moments of truth, when we have to be in a place and do something and say something, and this is the time to do it, this is the time and the place. And this is a challenge, whether you're able to say the right thing and do the right thing and be there, very much present and prepared, then this confirms how much you really are ready, where you really are. And we can even say, even if we take this example of intimate union between men and women, then they have a lot of things going on in their souls and in their psyche and in their relationship, but there are sensitive moments and situations in which these come into the most true challenge of how much you really love the other person, how much you're really faithful to them, and how much you're really sensitive to them, and so on. It all comes down to these precious, intimate moments of confrontation and meeting and union, and so on. Now, just so that we see the special place of Yesod, so again, we have 7 midot, but the 7th one is really something else. It's on the outside. It's not really part of our inner world. It's part of our outer world, as we're going to see next week. So we're down to 6. But even these 6, it sometimes says that there are really only 5 midot, essentially. There are 5 midot that come from Da'at. From Da'at gives birth to 5 midot. And then the 6th one, Yesod, is something else. It's something, and that's why it's not mentioned in David's prayer, Lecha Hashem, Agdula v'Gvura v'Tiferet v'Netzach v'Ahod. That's it, 5. And then you have Ki Kol Asher B'Shamayim U'Ba'aretz, Ki Chol, that you have something else, you have the element of combining them together. So we can give an example from something else in Judaism, something very, very basic. We know that in Pesach we count numbers from 1 to 13. And every number is associated with something very important. There's 1 Hashem, and there's 2 Luchot HaBrit, and there's 3 Avot, and 4 Imahot. And then what are 5 and 6? 5 is Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and 6 is Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. So that's something very interesting to contemplate. When Hashem gives the Torah, He gives 5 books of Moses. So there's Chamisha Chumshei Torah. And so when the Torah comes from heaven, it's Chamisha, but when it turns into Torah Shebe'al Peh, it suddenly becomes Shisha. So this is really it's a beautiful way of understanding the relationship between the 5 first Midot HaLev, attributes of the heart, and Yesod. The 5 ones are really us. It's like Torah coming from heaven. It's us coming to reality. And the 6th one has to do with how to bring ourselves to reality. We can think of the Mishnah as a point of transition between the Chamisha Chumshei Torah and the whole Pardes of the Gemara and all the other thinkers, right? Because where does it really expand into all the people thinking and debating? It's not in the Mishnah, it's in the Gemara and afterwards. So the Mishnah is like a point of transition. It's almost it became a sanctified. It was written very thoughtfully, very succinctly. How do you say? Very precious few words. No, like S-U-C-C.
Like short.
Yeah, but how do you pronounce it? Succinctly. Succinctly? Succinctly. So it's also even in the Mishnah. We have the 6 darim of Mishnah, but there's one Masechet that is considered encapsulating the entire Mishnah. That's Masechet Avot, Pirkei Avot. That's what we're studying right now, in the 6 weeks of the Omer between Pesach and Shavuot. So Avot was also initially 5 chapters. In the Mishnah, in the original Mishnah, it's 5 chapters. The 6th chapter was added later on, and then was incorporated into the editions of the Mishnah, but it's not part of Rabbi Yehuda Nussi's Mishnah. So it's the same relationship. Initially there's 5, but you need the 6th Seder and the 6th chapter, and you need the Yesod in order to make the transition from the straight light, the Or Yashar of the soul coming to the world, or of divinity revealing itself to the world, and the returning light of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, or the interplay between us and reality. So this is Yesod. It's very interesting. It's not really a part of our personality, but on the other hand, it's extremely important, because this is where all the different parts of our personality are forced to actually confront real life and to express themselves. This is like a test. It's like the major test. So this is the two sides of Yesod. Now, just to get a feeling of what it means in life to have these challenges. So, for example, whenever we need to say something important to someone, and we may have a lot to say, but we know that we have a chance. We have these moments of opportunities, of windows in time in which this is the time to say it. But if you have a lot to say and you don't sit down and concentrate and order the things, then they come out, they overflow, and you end up saying a lot of different things together. It's all jumbled up. This is because you didn't do the work of Yesod. Yesod means ordering it, saying, what do I say first, and what do I say second, what do I say third? There's A and B and C and D, down to Z. And this requires a lot of inner organization, inner control also. Another example is when I want something to change and I scream and shout because I want to force reality into the way I think it should be. This is not an influence that works on anyone. It may work superficially in a very short-term way, but it doesn't really make a profound and deep change in reality. When we sit down and write a letter, or write a story, or write an essay, and we don't have this ability to sit down and concentrate on all the things that we need to say, then again it'll all be, then there will be either one of two problems. Either we will be we will say everything together in a jumbled way, or we will be mute. We will not be able to say anything or do anything. We will be like someone who's incapacitated or meshutak. How do you say meshutak? Paralyzed. Now, again, the major image here is of intimate union, and the tikkun habrit, the idea of tikkun hayesod is rectifying the covenant. So first and foremost, this has to do with all the areas regarding sexuality and intimacy. Meaning it's starting with, when you're an adolescent, starting with the ability to control your urges and preserve yourself to a holy union with obligations and with the covenant, with having an actual covenant with your spouse. And then after you're married, it has to do with maintaining this intimacy and all the subtle ways in which you can be unfaithful. All this has to do with tikkun habrit, like not looking and not thinking and so on about things that people that are forbidden for you and so on. But really, once you one of the most major, we said this in the very beginning of the year, if you remember, that one of the things that the Sfirot give us is that they demonstrate the different aspects of our lives and of people around us are really, you can think of them as scattered phenomena, but once you have the name, the Sphira, you can see this has to do with Yesod, this also has to do with Yesod. You realize it's really the same thing, it's the same pattern in your life, and it can come about in one way, it can come about in another way. So having a good vocabulary of the Sphirot, knowing what Tiferet is and what Yesod is and what Netzach is being able to pinpoint a common denominator for different problems. So now I'm going to give you just a few examples of how unrectified Brit, unrectified preserving Shmirat HaBrit, this is how it's called, right? So Stam Kacha, Shmirat HaBrit means not to להוציא זרע לבטלה. How do you spill semen? How do you say? What's the spill? I spoke, and being faithful and so on. But it's not just that. The same kind of problem can come about in for just a small example. If someone can't keep their mouth shut, and they keep like spilling secrets, like they can't hold a secret. This is the same problem. It's the same problem. It comes from Yesod. Yesod is privacy, it's intimacy, it's modesty. And having, like, it's called leaking, having leaks. If you really want to, you don't appreciate secrets. It's something, just a side note, there's one of the biggest scandals in recent history was that there was this guy, an anarchist, a computer programmer anarchist, who decided that he wants to build a website that all the different companies and governments can leak all their secrets, and no one would know who is the one leaking it. And there was something, he wanted honesty, he wanted truth, he wanted transparency, but it's also, if you don't see that secrets have place, that sometimes a government needs secret, it preserves people, you endanger people if there are no secrets. And very interestingly, he was also involved in all these sexual scandals. And in sexual scandals in which he ignored the partner's wish that they would use how do you say? Contraception. He would ignore it. He didn't, because it's like it's the same. So it appears to be two totally different things. But what they have in common is this desire to not hold back, and to want everything to come out, and especially your own things and your own. So this is one example. Another example is if someone, like I said, is shouting or forcing. This is like raping reality. Raping reality is the most extreme form of unrectified yesod. Unrectified yesod in which I don't feel the other person at all, and I negate them, but I do feel myself completely. I make myself completely present, but I wipe out the other person. And being someone who wants to heavily control things and force himself on reality, this is like a same kind of fault. Another example, when we talk about the 7 Noachide commandments, the 7 mitzvot bnei Noach, and of course they also correspond to the 7 lower sefirot. So one of them is like the hardest to explain usually when talking about this, because most of them make sense. But one of them is ever min achai, not to eat an organ from a living animal.
An organ or meat? Period.
Ever is organ. Yeah, it's like you can't like pluck it out and eat it when it's cooked, and also maybe it also has to do with not being cooked properly. That like that you can't eat it raw, like raw meat. Hmm?
That's cutting it off the living animal.
That's but I think when you expand it, it also has to do with eating it raw. I think, I'm not sure. But anyway, what does it signify? Obviously, we can't think about the 7 Noachide commandments as only these elements, because that's like, how do you build like a world religion based on this? So obviously they mean much more than they appear to mean. So you start by understanding what they mean by corresponding them to the Sfirot. And Ever Min Achai corresponds to Yesod, because it symbolizes something much, much more wide. It symbolizes being able to wait and for processes to take place before you. It means really changing from a taker to a receiver and to a giver. If you're a taker, that's like rape. Again, you take something because you want it now. So impatience and taking something without having permission to take it. And all of these things have to do with Ever Min Achai, and they have to do with Yesod. So we can even make it so subtle that if I grab something from the fridge and like I spill something because something was in the way and I don't know, and I push it aside, that's also a fault in Yesod. It's a very subtle fault in Yesod, but it's a fault in Yesod. Because if I had the proper concentration and focus, then I would move and the patience, then I would take it when the time is right. Because this is in the way, for a reason it's in the way, because the things are not always there for the taking. Again, the rapist is the most extreme example. It's someone who feels that it's mine, the world or this person is mine for the taking. It's not. And you have to marry to be with this person. It's also for a couple who's married for years. Every time they have to meet each other, they have this respect of knowing that they have to get to this person. So all this has to do with rectifying Yesod. Now, how do we see Yesod coming from Netzach and Hod? So we spoke mostly of Netzach Yesod as like two legs, that is two activities. Start initiating something, and then confronting or facing the results, right? That was Netzach and Hod, the way we explained them. But like we said, they're not just legs, they could be also seen as kidneys, or testicles, or ovaries. So if it's something more internal, it means that it's more like, not like actions, like with legs, right? Like doing something and then facing the results, but as different kinds of drives or preparatory feelings, preparing me to come out into the world in Yesod. So how do we understand them? Then we can understand them like this, that Netzach is having the proper tension, and in Hebrew we say drichut. Daruch is when something is, like when you pull an arrow, but before you let go of it. How do you call this? Or a gun that you... Leverage? Maybe it's loaded. Maybe in the gun, I think it's loading the gun. But how do you call this action? The action of pulling the arrow before you let go. This is daruch. Daruch is when it's all tense and... Daruch, drichut.
What is the word in English?
Drichut is being watchful and very much aware. I need to find the closest word in English.
It's not leverage?
No, it's not leverage. Drichut is this kind of fruitful tension.
From derech, a direction, right? Drichut comes from derech.
Lidroch also is to step, but it's a verb in and of itself. It's maybe connected to other verbs. The verb lidroch is to like you stretch the air of the gun and then you let go of it. Maybe we can just try to do it as I'm talking. So from Hod comes this kind of tension.
No, you said from Netzach.
From Netzach, that's right. From Hod comes the opposite element of calmness and of patience. The Baal Shem Tov said that everything that you do in this world, when you go about this world doing projects and doing whatever you do, you should work from zrizut bemetinut. Zrizut is like alacrity. That's also a nice word in English. Alacrity is being very sharp and very prepared, swift, and like a waiter, a good waiter that's running around. That this being alacrity, and it's not just swiftness, because it's swiftness of doing things and of like serving, and so alacrity is zrizut, and metinut is patience, and you have to have both, because if you only have this alacrity, this zrizut, then you may rush into things. And if you only have metinut, then you may be too passive. But if this combination of zrizut, so zrizut here comes from netzach, and metinut comes from hod, and these two elements are what prepare you. That's what Yesod directly combines. It combines these two elements. So whenever we come to influence reality, whether you're a teacher, whether you write a letter, you write an essay, or you speak to your children, or you speak to anyone it is that you're in any confrontation with reality, you have to have this balance within you between zrizut. Zrizut means there are important things to be done, and I can't rest on my laurels, and I can't just wait for Hashem to take care of things. I'm here as His messenger. There are things I have to do. This is netzach. This is the drichut that I was talking about, the watchfulness, the wakefulness, and the alacrity of things need to be done, and I have to be on my guard. And the hod is, but things take time, and maybe things are not really ready. Maybe they're only ready for the letter A, and only tomorrow they'll be ready for the letter B. And only this year can I do something about it. Next year will it be the right moment to do something else. And you have to play it by ear to see how much reality can accept. As always, left line, sensitive to reality. Right line, wanting to influence reality. So this is the zrizut and the metinut. Metinut comes from seeing how much reality is open to receiving what I have to give it to. But metinut. Now that I have my marker, I can write it down. Zrizut bemetinut. Sorry? Also, yes, I spoke. Yeah, I talk positive tension, productive tension. That's what for drichut. It has to do with tension. It's turning the bow into something tense.
It's called. Isn't it called tensing the bow?
Maybe.
What it's called?
Maybe. So now remember that I have a morphics application here.
In archery, but that's the whole thing, you know.
No, archery, yes, I'm saying archery is the whole thing. There's probably a special word in archery.
Yeah, maybe there is.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. So the netzach is the sort of pulling and putting the tension on direction. The hod is actually the waiting when you see that animal.
When the time is right,
it's the waiting
to let go. It's also it's letting go.
But your sword is not letting go. Elaine.
Yeah. So what does Yesod have to?
Yesod is maintaining this combination. You know, it comes again. Hod is the calmness of looking at reality and seeing what the time. It's patience. So that's the patience itself. Yesod means knowing how to play, how to use these two emotions or these two feelings of tension of wanting to influence and wanting to give my seed to the world, and this patience of knowing when the time is right. Right? Again, the image, the metaphor here that we want to be modest about is intimate union, especially from the point of view of the male. Again, so but it's a metaphor for something that all men and women can use in reality. That there's something that has to approach reality, but also has to hold back because reality may not be ready. It has to, for example, slowing down your pace in order to really influence reality in a way that when the time is right, has to do with maintaining these two powers. I just want to look if I have this word here, if there's a good word. Tension, preparedness, drawing a bow, cocking.
No, cocking a gun, drawing a bow.
Cocking a gun.
Yeah.
Weaponry is cocking.
But it's
Drawing a bow and cocking a gun.
Drawing,
So cocking is very interesting. It's in this. Drawing a bow and cocking a gun. Okay, so that there's no word for drichut. It's a dricha. Okay, the action is dricha. Drichut is a state in which you are prepared and you're like this. The action is dricha, and now I'm in a state of drichut. Right, this is the. Let's move on. What is the rectification of Yesod? The rectification of Yesod we learn from the rectification of the organ of the covenant, from the male procreative organ. It's Brit Milah. So now we have to ask ourselves, what is Brit Milah emotionally, spiritually, in the soul, and in what way does it rectify Yesod? So basically the idea is like this. It's just like the male is born with a physical foreskin on the procreative organ. And that foreskin is like between them and the other person. And what does this foreskin do? It makes you more aware of yourself. The Maimonides explains that the reason Jews remove their foreskin is to diminish their sexual pleasure.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a big movement in the secular world right now.
Against it.
Against it.
Of course.
It's really
And this is the major case that they say. So yeah, so the Maimonides was inachinami. That's right, it does, because it's good that it does, because it's not good to. So, but we also have to explain deeply what it means. The idea is that the more the male has this pleasure, then what happens is that they're more aware of themselves, and they're less sensitive and aware of the woman, the other side. The more you're into yourself, the less you're able to feel the other person. So again, this physically has to do with the foreskin, the physical foreskin. But as we know, that there are other foreskins. There are emotional foreskins. So Chazal say there are 3 emotional foreskins. There's a foreskin of the lips, and aril sfatayim anochi, says Moshe. He stammers, and he's stammering. He can't speak very well. He says aril sfatayim anochi. I can't express myself very well. There's also oznaim arelot, foreskinned ears. Well, there's an expression in Hebrew that your words fall on oznaim arelot. Deaf ears. So the deaf ears in Hebrew is oznaim arelot, foreskinned ears. And of course there's the foreskin of the heart. Umalta et levavcha v'et levav zaracha, umal Hashem elokecha. So umal Hashem elokecha et levavcha v'et levav zaracha, ve'umaltem et levavchem. It appears twice in Dvarim. So there's the foreskin of the heart, there's the foreskin of the ears, the foreskin of the lips or the tongue. And also we can say that they all of these concentrate in a kind of foreskin that we have also in our yesod emotionally. When we approach someone else, they all have to do with being in contact with the other person, whether as listeners or as speakers, or in the middle, it's like having a heart. Having a heart is feeding the other person, feeding myself also. So the foreskin is something that stands between, it's like a screen dividing me and reality, dulling my sense of the other, and strengthening, sharpening my sense of self.
The foreskin sharpens your sense of self.
Yes, I have more physical pleasure, and I feel myself more. And it goes together with feeling the other less. So it's like a screen. It's like a kind of mirror. It's like it turns the window into a mirror, or a semi-mirror, in which the more I see myself, the less I see the other person on the other side of the screen. And this is our natural state. This is how all of us are born. So males have it physically in that organ, in that element, and that's what they need. Without choosing to, we need to do this for them. We need to cut off their foreskin. But then the rest of the work is still up to you. This is like, for males, it's like an opening step that we do this for you. But then the rest, and for women, who, according to Chazal, women are as if born circumcised. It's not that they're exempt from circumcision. If they were not have been born circumcised, then we would have. That's how Chazal says. They say, "Nashim keman de mahila damya," as if they are as if circumcised, meaning that by definition it has to do with women's circumcision. Circumcision is for everyone. Just women are born circumcised, physically, but emotionally we all have the same work. Yes.
Does Rizut pertain to Netzach and Metinut to Hod?
It's a question from one of the. Zrizut Netzach, Metinut Hod. Yes. Yes. Why? Because Zrizut is me wanting to give things to reality, and Metinut is stepping back and seeing how much reality is ready or not ready for it. And
so would you say the ego is that screen that emotionally you have to get rid of in order to feel the other people?
what is the screen?
The ego? Is that the
Yes, yes.
screen?
This is like the foreskin. The foreskin is our ego, which stands in the way of our true divine soul and reality, like this kind of screen. And rectifying it means we're cutting off this screen, taking away this screen that stands between us and reality, and then we are able, and what this means, it means increasing our sensitivity to the other person and decreasing our own self-consciousness, self-feeling, constantly being aware of what we feel and what we think and what we are going through. And it means letting go of that and being sensitive to the other person. Now let's look at something beautiful. Today it's Yesod Sheba Yesod, right? So what is tomorrow? What is the Sfira of if today is Yesod Sheba Yesod, tomorrow is Malchut Sheba Yesod. And so tomorrow and the day after tomorrow we have something unique. We have that the last element of Yesod, Malchut Sheba Yesod, leads directly into, flows into the entire week of Malchut. There's only now do we have this straightforward connection between the last day of Yesod and the week of Malchut. We have 8 days of Malchut. Malchut Sheba Yesod and then Malchut week. We had the same thing only in the transition between the first week and the first day of the second week. We had a week of Keter, then we had the Keter of Chokhmah, right? The first week was, not Keter, sorry, Chesed. The first week was Chesed, a week of Chesed, and then the second week starts, we have Chesed Sheba Gvura, right? So suddenly the element of Gvura is directly corresponds to the week from before it. But this is even more powerful because before Chesed is really Keter and Chokhmah and Binah. But here it is, which we just ignore in Sfirat HaOmer because this is working on the Midot. Here it's really, it's only here in the Sfirot do we have this. That, again, from Keter to Chokhmah we have the same thing. But here, we have this special day called Malchut Sheba Yesod, which leads directly into Malchut. So what does it all mean? It means this. It means that Malchut Sheba Yesod, that's like the tip of the Yesod. This is the part that Malchut is like the other person. Malchut is like the wife, and Yesod is like the husband. Malchut is like reality. That's reality that I want to touch and impregnate and make fruitful. And Yesod is the male organ, or the influence of the mashpia, coming to reality. The tip of the Yesod, it's called Ateret HaYesod, the crown of the Yesod. That's the Malchut Sheba Yesod. That's the part that actually touches and goes into Malchut and influences Malchut. The Orla sits on the Malchut Sheba Yesod, dividing the Malchut Sheba Yesod from Malchut itself, that is from the other person. Taking away the Orla means revealing the part of myself, Malchut Sheba Yesod. Yesod is me, Malchut is the other. Malchut Sheba Yesod is the part of me that is able to empathize and understand and see the world from the point of view of the other person. It's the part of me that understands, that experiences the world like the other person. If the Malchut Sheba Yesod is wrapped up in a foreskin, you're a foreigner to me. I don't know who you are, and I don't understand who you are. I don't care who you are. Because the part of you that echoes within me, I have a screen on that. If I take away that screen, I reveal the Malchut Sheba Yesod. And then I'm able to, I can't be the other person, but I'm able to have a taste of his world. I am Yesod, he is Malchut. But if I have a Malchut Sheba Yesod, then I have a glimpse of his world. I can taste his, I can see where they're coming from. And once I have that, then I'm able to marry the Malchut and come in contact with Malchut and experience and touch it and feel it. And not just to feel it, but also to move it. In Hebrew, it's the same root. Lehargish ve'leragesh. I'm able to feel the other person, I'm able to move the other person, to touch them. To touch is also leragesh. To move someone, to touch someone, in Hebrew it's leragesh, to leragesh someone. So it all has to do with sensitivity. So is this clear? This is, like the image here is that Yesod is the male. Male is the me that influences, the active me, the me that approaches, whether man or woman. When a woman is talking to her husband and saying something, then at that moment she is Yesod and the husband is Malchut. So the Yesod is the male, but the male for each one of us is me as I'm approaching reality to give it something, to influence it. As a giver, mashpia. And Malchut is the other person who's now the receiver. And Malchut Sheba Yesod is the part of me that is able to empathize and feel the other person. And this is what is covered up in a foreskin. In Brit Milah, this is what is... In Brit Milah, the foreskin is to reveal the Ateret. It's called the Ateret HaYesod. Ateret HaYesod is like the tip of the procreative organ in the male. You have to reveal the tip, that's it. And because this diminishes my sense of my own pleasure in me, the pleasure of me, which is also, the Yesod of Klippa also gives. The Yesod of Nefesh Be'em, it gives, but it gives only in order to feel myself as the giver. It influences, it works, it changes things in reality. It's Yesod. Yesod is an influence it's an organ of influence, but it's an influence that is really all just taking. And it's all just feeling myself and making myself known and famous and enjoying the fact that people look at me, and it's all about me. It's not about the other person at all. And you can see when someone is talking to people and they're lecturing them. What is lecturing them? It's like, again, it's not coming into their hearts. So it's like it's like spilling your seeds. It's nothing. It's just because you want to take it out of your system. But if it's not about you, and if you have the right combination of Netzach and Hod, then you're able to think what is really going to touch this other person. It's not just about me taking out of my system, or making myself feel better because I told him, I gave him a piece of my mind, I told him what I think should blah blah blah. This is all unrectified Yesod. So again, the Tikkun of Yesod is uncovering the part of me that can see the world from the point of view of the other person. Malchut is all Or Chozer, it's all returning light, it all comes from reality. Yesod is the apex of the straightforward light. It's all this light of me influencing reality. It reaches the very end of Yesod. There's Malchut by Yesod, which is able to also come in contact with a totally opposite point of view. Just something beautiful that puts it all together. There are many gematrias for how to divide the 49 days of the Omer into parts. So the two major ones are that Lev Tov, a good heart, Lev Tov is Gematria 49. And that divides it exactly in Lag BaOmer. Lev is the 32 days before Lag BaOmer. That's Lev, just rectifying the heart. But from Lag BaOmer onwards, we can dance and we can sing. Rashbi is with us, and we don't have all the Evel, all the mourning elements. Then this is now making the heart into a good heart. Tov is 17 in Gematria. And from Lag BaOmer, including Lag BaOmer onwards, that's Tov. So that's a beautiful remez. We have Lev Yamim and Tov Yamim. There's another interesting distinction. There's a verse that says, let's see if I have it here so that I can remember, that I don't misquote. I don't have it here, but Im kamatmonim tachpesena. Anyway, I don't remember, but it goes like this: if you will seek wisdom like a hidden treasure and you follow it and everything, then az tavini rat Hashem v'dat Elokim timtza. So there's an im and an az, and the matmonim here, the word matmonim for treasure, is a very famous allusion to Sfirat HaOmer, because you can read it as, instead of matmonim, right? Matmonim means treasures. but you can divide it into memtet, 49. Monim is counting 49, counting 49 days. So the idea is that the Sfirat HaOmer, Monim, Memtet, counting 49, is really all about finding hidden treasures within you, within the world, and so on. So, but the verse is based on a structure of im, as, if, then. Im, if you will seek it like a treasure, and you will work hard on it, then you will be able to find this treasure, right? So, im, as, right? Im, as. If, then. What is im in Gematria? Mem is 40, so it's 41. And as is 8. So where does this transition take place? So it's today. Yesod Sheba Yesod is, for the first 41 days go up to Yesod Sheba Yesod. Today is the 41st day of the Omer. And then the last 8 days are the 8 days of Malchut. As if you work hard for 41 days, then there is the last 8 days are in many ways are already the result of the 41 days. And look, it's not just that. Look at the two letters. There's 1 and there's 7. This is Malchut Sheba Yesod, and this is the week of Malchut. So these are the 8 days of Malchut, but you can even fit within the word. It's 1 and 7, it's as. So it's really, all this im as is like an encapsulation of the entire Sfirat HaOmer. So there's Lev Tov, right? There's Lev Tov, which is 32 and before Lag BaOmer, from Lag BaOmer onwards. That's one. And the other distinction is im as, up until Yesod Sheba Yesod, and then now it's all about what comes out of it, as the result, not the im. The im is the tense condition. By the way, this is something that English-speaking person are more excited about than people. This is the advantage. There's something about, for some reason, I don't know why.
We don't have any meaning in any of our words. We don't have any to actually understand that there's a soul.
Like for example, if the memtet monim, memtet monim, like for Israelis, I mean, people are open. It's different, but it's like it would sound corny. You can divide it into, and you were like, wow, memtet monim. Immediately you can counting 49. You can say. Yeah. Because the letters, yeah, the alphabet, yeah. You're excited about the letters. The letters are, yeah, it's a wonderful thing. It's an important thing to have, of course. Of course, the Rabbi Ginsburg is excited about the letters every day when it comes to something new. It's like Ole Chadash every time. It's like.
What was the second half of that verse? If you will seek it for treasure.
Hang on, I have to find it. It's really lo beseder. Even you have the book here. Im kamat monim tachpesena. I just Google it, that's all. אם תבקשנה ככסף וכמטמונים תחפשנה, yeah, here it is, hang on. Wiki source. אם תבקשנה ככסף וכמטמונים תחפשנה, אז תבין יראת השם ודעת אלוקים תמצא. It doesn't have the second half here. If you seek it like silver or money, uchamatmonim, and like treasure, you will look for it. Tevakshena is to ask for it. Techapsena is to search for it. Anyway, it's Proverbs 2:4. You can look it up. Proverbs 2:4. Aleph Zayin is 1:7. 1 is so the last 8 days. Tomorrow is going to be Malchut Sheba Yesod. That's 1 because it's the last day of Yesod. And then you have 7 days of pure Malchut, of just the week of Malchut. So that's Malchut. Malchut Sheba Yesod, Malchut. Malchut Sheba Yesod and Malchut. I'm sorry for my handwriting is very bad in all languages.
Today is that. Starting tomorrow night is the
starting tonight is the week of, no, sorry. Tomorrow night is the week of Malchut, the last week. Tomorrow is the 42nd, there's 6 weeks. And then yeah. Okay, so just to sum it all up, we have Yesod as the moment of confrontation, emut, which is also a verification or confirmation. Verification is a more precise word. Verity is truth. So verification this is where our how much we're really rectified is tested. And it needs the combination of the tension, the productive tension, like drawing a bow from Netzach, and the calmness, the willingness to let go, and to both to hold back and to let go. It's really the two things have to do with Hod. Admitting that now is not the right time, and also admitting that now is the right time. So both holding back and letting go have to do with By the way, I think you can say that maybe Zrizut and Metinut is the opposite. It's something you have to like study it, but in a way you can say that Zrizut comes from Hod and Metinut from Netzach. Why? Because Netzach is sometimes like controlling yourself, holding back. It means a lot of Gvura within you. I have to think about it. Sometimes it has to do with restraint. No, but I think that the way I said it before is more precise. Wanting to influence, but knowing how to hold back from Hod because the time is not ripe. Anyway, we need this combination in order to approach reality. And the major test is whether we are circumcised or not circumcised. When we come to influence our spouse or our children or our students or whoever it is, but there's still some foreskin, then it's not going to work properly because we're not really trying to see what the other person needs and what they are able to take right now. And it's all about just us. And the rectification of this is like circumcising ourselves. Regarding circumcision, it says that first it's the duty of the father. If the father does not do their duty, it passes on to a Beit Din. The Beit Din have to circumcise the child if for some reason the father was not there or didn't do it for some reason. And if for some reason the Beit Din didn't do their duty, then it moves. The obligation is up to the child itself when they're grown. Just like Abraham did it himself to himself. So they have to take care of it. They have to make sure that they're circumcised. Just like Jews who grew up in countries they didn't circumcise, they start doing tshuva, and they want to be circumcised. Of course, converts, and so the same goes about Tikkun Yesod emotionally. That it's first up to our parents to make us more rectified and more sensitive to other people. If they don't, and they do whatever they don't do, then it goes on to the teachers. Like Beit Din is like the school. It's like our organization that just takes care of your education beyond what your parents have been able to do. There comes an age in which you don't really listen to your parents, but you do listen to your teachers. And then after that, it's all up to you. It's all up to you. So for adults, again, it's all up to us. Whatever our parents didn't do and our teachers didn't do, or were not able to do, and now we have to do it. And we have to work on, by the way, hachnav, dalam, taka, all these very important concepts, it's all an image of circumcision. It all comes from the idea of circumcision. That we need to admit that we have a foreskin, then we need to remove it and reveal the true sensitive self underneath it, which is both sensitive to who we truly are and also sensitive to who the other person really is. And then hamtaka is the union itself, that I'm able to express myself in a way that's proper, that really expresses me, and also can be heard by reality, by the other person, sensitive to how they need to hear things.
So lowliness is at the bris milah.
Sorry?
Lowliness is at the bris milah for the heart.
Loneliness?
Loneliness.
Lowliness. Lowliness. No, lowliness is even before Achna'a. It's before Achna'a of the lamb. It's not the circumcision yet. It's not yet circumcision. That's something you need to have in order to start working on. Shiflut comes before Achna'a. You studied about, I'm sure you studied about Bitul Anava Achna'a Shiflut. You had this with Moshe?
I didn't hear.
That Achna'a is Bitul within Shiflut, and Anava is Shiflut within Bitul. You didn't? It's very strange. It's the second bi'ur of Perek B'Avodat, of the article you're studying, Perek B'Avodat Hashem. Then the second bi'ur starts with this. Maybe just use the English words. When he talks, he says Bitul and Shiflut, or he says loneliness and selflessness. He uses both. Maybe. Okay, so how much time do we have left? Because there's a lot of things to say. What do we have to decide that we're focusing on?
1:22.
So we passed the time, but we started very late. So we'll just say that a few things. One is that the tzaddik of Sfirat HaYesod is, of course, Yosef. Yosef, in many ways, was a mediator, and also had to confront the challenges of sexual promiscuity in Egypt and the seductions of Eshet Potiphar. And he was able to pass it almost entirely successfully. According to Chazal, he wasn't perfect. He restrained himself, but according to Chazal and to Kabbalah, there were 10 drops of semen that came out of his fingers. Yeah, and it's like, no, it didn't explode. It's like, pop, came out these 10 seeds, and they became, and these from these seeds that were spilt, then came Aseret Harogei HaMalchut, the 10 people who were killed by the Romans, were sacrificed with. It's like souls that haven't found their place, and it's very, very interesting. Anyway, basically, he's like the image. He's just to show us that even the image, even the person most demonstrating to us what is rectification of Yesod, it's not always perfect. And even the biggest tzaddikim, in a very subtle way, all the tzaddikim know this, and they know that every fault that they see in people who come to them with problems, they have it in the subtle of dakut shebadakut, subtle of subtle. So even we can see. And if you don't find it within yourself, you can't give them advice. So yeah, but it wasn't just that about Yosef. Yosef was able to bring down, to explain dreams that other people had, to translate them into. He was a translator in many ways. He would translate the dreams, and he would also mediate between reality, taking care of collecting all the corn, all the seeds, all the chita, and preserving them, and then allotting them to 7 years. You have to concentrate, and then say, now this is what I give you for the first year, and the second year, this is exactly Yesod. It's all Yesod. At first you gather and collect, and you don't use it all at once. And then you say, now we have to allot it to the different years, because this is the concentration of Yesod. And he was also a mediator between the sons of the mistresses and the sons of the maidservants. He himself, because it says that the sons of the Gvirot, the sons of Leah especially, not especially only, because Binyamin was very young, and then was just him and all these sons of Leah. The sons of Leah would mistreat the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. They were called the sons of the maidservants. But he was in between. He was the son of a Gvira, but he was raised by Bilhah. Also Binyamin, but Binyamin was young. So when they were growing up, he was mediating. He was taking care of the son. So you can see all the time that he's tzaddik Yesod Olam. He's like the Yesod foundation between So that's something to add.
That's a question, then Yesod is Vav?
Vav alludes both to all the 6 Sefirot, and sometimes only to Tiferet, sometimes only to Yesod. It depends on the context. Vav is like Zeranpin, is the 6 Sefirot. But sometimes you use only Tiferet as representative of all 6, sometimes you use only Yesod as representative of all 6. So if Yud Kei Vav Kei, they can sometimes mean Chokhmah, Binah, all 6 Sefirot and Malchut, or sometimes they can be Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, Malchut, or sometimes they can be Chokhmah, Binah, Yesod, Malchut. So it all depends on your Hitbonanut, what you're dealing with at the same moment.
You said that I feel that he's the embodiment of Yesod, so he had a difficulty, but it's because this is his tikkun that he's the embodiment of Yesod. It has to be.
For example, that he was so pretty. Why was he so pretty?
This is what I'm saying.
That he attracted Eshet Potiphar, because that's his tikkun. It goes together. Yeah, it goes together.
So of course it was hard for him. It has to be, otherwise he
Yeah.
can't embody Yesod.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I also sort of unrelate to what we're learning with Rabbi Ganut about having compassion on our animal soul is so low. I mean, on ourselves is so low, and in doing this. And having compassion on the divine soul, because because we forget her. Yeah. And we don't pay much attention. And then realizing Hashem has constant infinite mercy on us. Where does it fit in the Sirot?
Mercy is Tiferet. And being connected to a sense of mercy helps you. So this is it works perfectly with Yosef. How did Yosef survive all the 22 years in Egypt, in which he was the only Jew and the only one with any kind of spiritual sensitivity? How did he survive this? He survived this because he kept looking in his mind. In his mind's eye, he would place the portrait of his father before him. He would imagine all the time that he's standing in front of his father, Yaakov, the tzaddik, and that helped him when he came down. Yaakov was never in Egypt. He confronted Lavan, but he didn't reach Ervat Haaretz, the most defiled place on earth. And Yosef did, but by being connected. So in the Sfirot, this is Yesod coming down to influence reality. But if it's connected to Tiferet is Yaakov, to Rachamim, and the Hashpa'ah comes from Rachamim. Again, in Achna Havdalah Amtaka, the Havdalah, the middle element here of rectifying the Yesod, Havdalah means taking off the foreskin in order to meet my true self, be in touch with my true self, and also be sensitive to the other person and not be wrapped in within myself. And in order to do this, I need constantly to be connected, to absorb energy and inspiration from the part of me that has rachamim. Rachamim about my divine soul, rachamim about the other person's divine soul. And also their body. Because regarding the other person, I should also be merciful. Even regarding ourselves, Hillel HaZaken would say, I'm going to do chasadim with my body. I'm going to go to the Bet Rachatza. He says, I'm doing a mitzvah with this poor old lady that is my body. It's a mitzvah. He said, how can you going to a mikveh is a mitzvah? I said, it's a mitzvah because I have to take care of my body. So all this has to do with the rachamim about the divine. So it's rachamim about the body, that I have to take care of it, and the other person. And by the more you're connected to rachamim, then your yesod, the part of the influence, is able to go down into harsh reality with all its challenges and confrontations. But if you're connected to something above, then it's like snappling. You can go down very, very low if you're connected to something strong that holds you above. So if you're connected to your father here is the rachamim, then your yesod can go all the way down to the worst places in the world, but you will remain pure because you're connected to this point of rachamim. Yeah.
He really went down.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was connected. Now his daughter declared herself to be reformed. Wow. The daughter now. The Neshama Karla, she made a declaration that she is no longer Orthodox, as if this was, I don't know, but she's now reformed. And but for in his case, this was definitely true. And what I think she does not realize is that in order to really make the combination that he did, in order to really influence in a strong way reality, you have to be connected to something that reform has nothing to do with being connected to something very, because it's not separate from reality. It's all about flowing with whatever reality gives you. So today this is not relevant or is relevant. You're not separate from reality. You don't have a halacha which is pure in and of itself, and then you're trying to bring it to reality. So she's not going to have as much influence as and he has. He was able to be connected to his Rebbe and to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and Yiddishkeit in a very, very strong way. And then he was able to go down. Reb Shlomo Karlebach, we're talking about him. And of course, even then, you have to be careful regarding everything that has to do with Yesod. Regarding all these things, even if you...
It seems like Yesod's on the side of Netzach and Malchus is on the side of Hod.
It seems that Yesod is on the side...
Even though it's in the middle, it seems like it's more on the side of Netzach and Malchus is more on the side of Hod.
Malchut doesn't... it says that Malchut is Binyan HaMalchut min HaGvurot. There's an expression that says that Malchut is built based on Gvurot. But regarding Netzach and Tiferet, there's something... Yesod and Tiferet, and it says that Tiferet is closer to the right side, to Chesed and Netzach, and Yesod is closer to the left side, to Gvura and Hod. If we want to, but Tiferet, but Malchut is really, we can't read. Binyan HaMalchut min HaGvurot, but it's all about taking, it's like in the really middle, it's everything in the end comes to Malchut. But Yesod and Tiferet have a tendency. So Yesod leans to the left, not to Netzach. It leans towards the left side more because there's a lot of Gvura in Yesod. If you're rectifying the Yesod, eventually you need a lot of Gvura. At the end of the day, after all this said and done in this class about Yesod, you need a lot of Gvura. So that's why. And Tiferet, Rachamim, is closer to Chesed than to Gvura. That's very obvious. They even consider it synonyms sometimes, like Chesed and Rachamim. That
The
people
other
don't.
two triangles, they're more closer to the right side. Also, Da'at to...
So that I don't know. I don't know about that.
No, that. Tiferet to... you said it now.
Tiferet is closer to Chesed than to Gvura, and Malchut is also closer to the line of Gvura than to the line of Chesed, though they have a tendency. Right, so in a way you can do something like this. This is Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Then in a way there's like a line. You can put like something like this. The Tiferet goes more with Chesed, and Yesod goes more with the left line. In a way, you can group them in. There's this kind of.
So it's more about holding back than about expressing myself. You know, there's more time we actually have to hold back than express in order to rectify Yesod.
Again.
In order to rectify Yesod.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah, even a lot of holding back.
A little bit of expression.
It's more in the inside. It's more on the inside that you have to. Like I said, at the end of the day, rectifying the Yesod has to do with a lot of Gvura, and I think this is what it means, Binyan HaMalchut min HaGvurot. שבניין המלכות הוא מהגבורות של היסוד. That because the Yesod is, because the teacher has a lot of Gvura, then the student that builds the student. Right? It's not the Gvurot of the student. It's also, but it comes from the teacher. The teacher has a lot of Gvura and instills the student with Gvura. And all these Gvurot, they build the Malchut. But it has to do with the Yesod tending or using more energy from the left line, from the Gvura line. And this is what...
Practically that means that the teacher says less than more?
Sorry?
Practically does that mean that the teacher in your position of your...
The teacher needs a lot of patience. The teacher knows so many things, but he can only teach at every point something very, very small. It's like it has to one seed. He has this whole understanding of things. He has to produce one little seed and give it, because that's the only thing that the brain of the student can accept. It's a very small brain. It's a very small vessel.
It's very hard to know.
This is tzimtzum. So tzimtzum is gvura. You have all these things you want to teach, and it's good that you want to teach them, but eventually most of what you do as a teacher is deciding what not to teach and then condensing what you do know. It's two kinds of tzimtzumim. It's putting aside things that are not really relevant for the student to hear, and what is relevant you have to simplify and concentrate and make it so that it fits their vessel. There's a lot of gvura.
I have a question.
This is yesod, using mostly gvura. With the drive, of course, there's also the left line. It's a middle line. Also draws on the right line. Now, the right line is wanting to teach, wanting them to have something. But most of your work as a teacher is gvura. So the same goes for yesod or any kind of influence. Sorry.
So how do you figure out who's...
Hang on. She really wants to say something for some
No,
moments.
she can ask.
How do you figure out who you're speaking to when you're teaching? Like, how do you know if they're getting you at all?
You have to listen, you have to ask, you have to... Everything that I don't do.
If it's a group, a big group, you don't know the group, so...
So you can feel the vibe, It's different for every class. If it's a small class, then there's more room for interaction. If it's a huge lecture for 300 people, you can't afford it, but you can see if the audience is restless and listening, and you can feel the... Have you had this experience of lecturing in front of a big audience? So you can see and you can ask your Eviatal. You can feel the audience. You can feel whether they're with you or not. There's a vibe. I don't know how to explain it. When you're teaching a big audience, you can feel them also. It's a different medium. It's a different... Tov.